Hey, what's up? So this one is about passive aggressive behavior. It's a bit of a tricky subject. It can be difficult to put your finger on, but it is something that needs to be talked about. And so I just had an experience with it, and so it kind of feels like it's a good idea to bring it up right now because I can relate to it. I mean, it's really fresh. And so something that happened here for myself recently is that I live in a house, and so I just rent a room. And yesterday there was a delivery that came here, and nobody else was home, and so I answered the door, and I got what was delivered. It was some big stuff, fridge and a stove, and I said, okay, we'll just put it in the garage, right? And so really, like, this was none of my business. It had nothing to do with me. And then so in the evening, I came out of my room. I had to go to my car. I forgot my phone in my car, and there's the landlord, and he's moving these things downstairs, and and I was like, oh wait, hey, what are you guys doing? And he says, oh well, you should have got these things put downstairs. And I was like, excuse me, I should have. And at that point I had a choice. I could have just kind of like brushed it off or just like let it go. And that is one way to handle the situation, absolutely. But the thing is, I've been abused a lot in my life. I've dealt with a lot of people who are abusive, people who are passive aggressive. And so I've come to know what it looks like when a person is attacking me. And this is the thing, is it's subtle. And so this is why it's difficult to put your finger on, because it's like when somebody says, well, you should have done this, right? So what's happening in this situation? It's this person is frustrated because they didn't organize things in the way that they needed to. They took certain steps, but they didn't take enough to ensure that they didn't have a contingency plan. It's like, well, it was really somebody else's job was supposed to answer the door, or maybe him, or, if he wanted me to have anything to do with it, then he could have communicated with me and said, hey, just in case this happens, can you make sure that this happens in this way? No problem, right? So this person's frustrated, and then he points a finger at me. Well, you know what they say about pointing fingers. When you start pointing fingers, prepare to have some pointed back at you, because then you're at that point accusing other people. You're saying, hey, when you say, well, you should have done this, like the word should implies that it's like, like you've done something wrong, and like there's an energy to it, applying shoulda, woulda, coulda, didn't, right? And it's like the only thing that I should have done was minded my own business and stayed in my room. If anything, that's what I should have done. I mean, and so this was the thing, and when this came up, I just said, you know what? No, I was like, you should have organized this better. It's like, you should have contacted the company, told them what to do. I had nothing to do with this kind of stuff. And this is the thing. It's just like, he afterwards, he said, hey, you know what? I'm sorry. I was frustrated. And he's like, because of this and this and this. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. We all get frustrated, we all make mistakes, but I mean, the point is that it's really important to that when this kind of stuff happens, that you do stand up for yourself, because what you allow to continue will, especially when it comes to abuse, people who are abusive, people who are passive aggressive, people who try to put their insecurity or their frustration, their anger on you, people who project that kind of stuff on other people. And someone can only ride your back if you're bent over, and what you allow to continue will. And if you don't give people feedback about how their behavior is unacceptable, then it will just happen to the next person. So it's like it has to stop at some point, and that takes having courage to, confront someone and to be uncomfortable for a moment and say, hey, actually no, right? And you have to have a spine. You have to stand up tall and you have to say, no, that is unacceptable. I will not be your punching bag. You will not take jabs at me. You will not tell me what I should have done, because that wasn't the arrangement. It is not our arrangement, and it's not fair, for what it's worth. It's important, I think, too, because it's like we have to be responsible for our own actions and the things that we do. We have to be responsible for the things that we are involved in, and we can't, when things don't go according to how we want them to, it's not acceptable to try to then put that on somebody else and blame somebody else, use them as a scapegoat for our own shortcomings. It is, so it's a tricky thing, this like passive aggressive behavior, because it's very, very common. It's just like I made a video about narcissism recently. It's called Narcissism and Reputation. And it's the same thing, is that all of this stuff, it's very subtle, and most people don't have they're unable to identify this type of behavior, and so it just continues in sort of a vicious cycle. And all it does, I think for most people, is it leaves you feeling icky when somebody is abusive, but it's passive aggressive, so it's very subtle. If you're unable to put your finger on what is going on, you need to be able to identify it, and then you need to be able to like understand it in a way that you can like kind of break it down in regards to other things, so that you can explain it. Because it's like, it's one thing to be able to say it, but if you can't really explain it, if you can't talk about it at length, then you don't understand it, and it's very difficult to address, right? And so I see this behavior a lot, especially in like every person that is a relationship, but certainly in romantic relationships. I see it with, there's a big problem in my own family right now. And I remember there was a person who is having some real issues right now. And they actually, when I brought the subject of passive aggressive behavior to them, they did not know what the term meant. They said, passive aggressive? What does that mean? And then it was like a light bulb moment for me, because it was like, yeah, you are super passive aggressive, and this is where a lot of these issues are coming from. But it's challenging, to break it to somebody slowly that they are an abusive person who uses sort of underhanded underhanded tactics to, whatever it is, to get what they want, or to alleviate the emotions that they're feeling, to try to put their anger or frustration on other people. And so, and the thing is also, along with all of this, is that these people who do this, I would say that they are not aware of it. So whether that's subconscious or unconscious, I don't know, right? But I mean, they don't mean to. I don't think people mean to be mean. People don't mean to be abusive. So you have to handle the situation. There's a quote by Lao Tzu from the Tao Te Ching, and it is, never underestimate your enemy. Underestimating your enemy means thinking that they are evil, as opposed to just being a human being, just like you, who's going through a process of figuring things out, figuring themselves out, and whatnot, right? So it's like it's a delicate situation, because if you really think about it, a person who's exhibiting those types of behaviors, who isn't dealing with them internally, who's trying to project, who's externally, who is putting their feelings on others and projecting it outwards, and being aggressive and being cruel or mean or accusatory, or and all of this is a form of violence. This is abuse. So people who are abusive. But the thing is, where this is tricky is because that behavior is coming from a place, it's not coming from a place of security. It's not coming from a place of empowerment. It's not coming from a place of being centered and grounded, and it's not coming from a place of understanding. It's not coming from a place of rootedness. It's coming from a place of probably hurt and scared and different things, right? I mean, it's going to be different for every person, but I mean, probably something to do with their own childhood, their own life experiences. And so it's just important not to, when it happens to you, not to just go right and point the finger right back and then and return the violence, because then it becomes like a battle, right? I mean, it can become a war, and it's all up here, right? So like the way to stop butting heads with somebody has to go from here down to here. It's the only way, right? You're never going to, you don't fight fire with fire. Somebody said, you don't solve a problem using the same logic that created it. I think that's Einstein. And so it takes being a bigger person. I mean, it doesn't take, but it also takes using this. You have to use your mind and your heart in tandem, right? It's not one or the other. And it's important not to take it lying down as well, because if, like I said, what you allow to continue will, and someone can only ride your back if you're bent over. So you have to, it is a complex situation on how to address a scenario that is taking place that is rooted deep in someone's consciousness, and we're talking subconscious, unconscious kind of stuff, because there could be a variety of reasons why, to do with a person's theme of life and all this kind of stuff. It's hard to say exactly where it's coming from. So it's very tricky to deal with. And I think, for myself, it's like when you're dealing with deep psychological disturbances in people that manifest as very subtle behaviors that are categorized when broken down as abusive or violent or passive aggressive or that kind of thing. The only way to deal with this is in the moment, because if you try to bring it up after the fact, the next day, a week later, a month later, a year later, then it is you who's being negative, because you're digging into the past and you're not letting it go, and you're bringing things up and you're going on about stuff. So it's a tricky thing. So as far as I understand, the only way to deal with these things is in the moment. because then when it's fresh, a person is able to see immediately what is going on. And it really helped, for at least in this situation, is that there were other people there. And so the thing is behind closed doors, some people will say anything. They'll lash out, they'll use all kinds of words and express themselves towards another person because nobody else sees it. But when there's other people there, it's called third-party arbitration. And because we all have a sort of a general sense of what, we can tell, even if we can't necessarily identify it and put a word to it, we can tell when somebody is being aggressive or abusive, or when their behavior is unacceptable. And so it keeps people in check. And so it can really help to have other people there to help to, I don't know if the word is like pacify the situation, because like I said, of what the people will behave differently when nobody else is watching, because they believe that they can get away with it, because then it's really your word against theirs when it comes down to it. And then all they need to do is be manipulative. They need to be, as long as they can convince somebody else of their story, they just need to be convincing, then they can essentially get away with the behavior, right? And so then it's just more mind stuff and whatnot. And I think that's it. I mean, just the last bit is, because I don't know if I finished it, just how important it is to handle the situation delicately. Yeah, and that was the thing, is in the moment. And so this is what's challenging about it, is that when this kind of thing comes up, to deal with it properly, you have to have resolve as a human being. You have to say, and you have to take a chance. You have to have resolve, meaning you have to say, there has to be something within you that is, number one, mature enough to handle the situation. Because if you lash out, if you get angry, you just add fuel to the fire, but you need to be able to handle the situation immediately, and you need to be calm and composed, and you need to not point fingers, and you need to handle the situation in a very mature and respectable manner without losing your cool, even though you're being attacked, even though you are the subject of somebody else's abuse. You need to rise up above that and just and it's hard, right? Like in the moment, because the first thing that you want to do is react, because somebody is being mean to you, and what is going on isn't justified, and it's but if you can, you have to like kind of take that energy and transform it, and keep your cool, and then say calmly, no, this is unacceptable, and then and explain your point without attacking somebody else or without getting angry yourself. But I tell you something, I've been confronted with a number of instances in my life where I've had to make a choice about whether or not I was going to say something or not. I mean, I think that we all have, right? I mean, there are times in life where we have to choose whether or not we're going to lie down and take it, or if we're going to say something. And I tell you, it has ended relationships saying something. I made a video about this as well. It's called "What Does It Mean to Have Integrity?" Because integrity is about not falling to bits, not crumbling, not under the weight, not letting something get to you to make you collapse. It is about having some kind of boundaries and a sort of a strength to be able to handle, to weather a storm. If you think of it in sort of the terms of like a building, it's sort of like the analogy that I'm building in my mind at the moment. But like, and it's challenging because some people, everybody reacts to it differently. Some people, if it's behind closed doors, that's a scenario unto itself. If it's in front of other people, that can be a very good thing, because for some people who are abusive and are dealing with kind of abusive, aggressive, passive aggressive, violent behavior, even though it's subtle, it doesn't matter. Emotional abuse, mental abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, it's all abuse, right? It doesn't, neglect is a form of abuse too. I mean, but if it's in front of lots of people, it can really help, because sometimes people get so carried away with themselves and their own ideas and their own energy that they just have no idea how it's affecting others and how they're hurting other people. And the only way to reach them is through an intervention. And I've been involved in these before, where I was at a festival with somebody who was being the biggest dick to his partner, who was about to get married to, and I was actually the person who was going to marry them. And he was just completely blind, like oblivious to what was going on. And the people, like at that time, we were there with like, say, 20 people, and nobody knew what to do. And I stepped up and, like, in front of like all of your closest people, closest friends, and was like, you have to stop that right now. Look at what you're doing. We're all standing here in solidarity, saying that, like, you're hurting this person, and it is hurting all of us because you are not handling your own emotions in a way that is acceptable and responsible, and it needs to end right now, and it actually worked, because it's one thing if it's just one other person, but when it's 20 people that you know and respect all saying the exact same thing, and then when they try to like weasel out of it, and then other people, because somebody took the initiative to say something and to confront a bully, essentially, and then other people can piggyback off of that person's strength and say no, like, yeah, when people get together and they support one another, and it's not an attacking thing, right? It's supporting that person as a last resort. It's not ganging up on a person, right? It's not trying to beat them down. It's trying to elevate them from where they at to where they could be so that it's healthier for everybody else. So that's like a very tricky thing, because I think we all know a lot of people who are really abusive, and it goes on and on and on until somebody does something about it, or a lot of people do something about it. Oh, I had no idea that, this would affect me so much. Like I said, I've dealt with a lot of abusive people who treated me in ways, and it was because of all of this that I am who I am, and that I actually have the ability to speak about this stuff now, because I've been so hurt by so many people that I was so close to, that I counted on, that when I needed them the most, they just hung me out to dry or sold me out and just walked over me, dragged me through the mud. And like, it was because I was so disturbed by how other people, how they felt that it was okay to treat me, that I finally woke up. I was asleep and I woke up. I wouldn't wish what I've been through on anyone, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who've been through a lot worse than me. But I am proud to be able to talk about this stuff, and I don't know, be some assistance, because abuse sucks. It hurts. It hurts everybody, and the person who's the abuser is hurting too, right? And it's like, and that's why we also have to forgive, to let go of a need for, say, revenge, or getting back, or to make another person hurt so that they know how much they hurt you, to let go of that. The definition, that is one definition of forgiveness. Another one given by Bashar is forgiveness is like the choice to say, I don't need anything outside of myself to be at peace with what happened. And that doesn't mean that you don't need to deal with it in some way, but to be at peace with it, meaning that you haven't become jaded as a result of it. It hasn't ruined a relationship, that you're not willing to let bygones be bygones, that you're not, that you can't let it be water under the bridge, and just let it go, and accept that we all make mistakes, and that we're all learning things, and that life is hard, and we all we all get upset and frustrated, and we don't always know how to process our emotions, and not everybody was taught how to treat others perfectly. So yeah, I don't know. But yeah, the last piece was just that it's just every time that I have in my life, at least in recent years, say in the last 5 years, when those moments have come up in my life where I have needed to say something, and I did, because I've become aware of the power of this. How powerful it is, because if you listened to anything that I've been saying, we're talking about some deep stuff. It's complex. There's levels, there's layers to it. It goes deep. And so every and so, like I said, some of these times when I've said things, I've ended partnerships, romantic relationships, by refusing to put up with abuse. I've stopped friendships. I've lost employment. But I wouldn't take any of it back. And, I have a self-respect for myself, knowing that I am actually being of service by not pretending like everything is okay when it is not. And it is a thing that I guess I wouldn't say that I've struggled with it, but I've certainly reflected on these times in my life over the last few years, when I've felt it necessary to say, a few friends, and it's ended friendships, and it's hard. But like, what do you have if you have a relationship where there is negativity present, where there is abuse present, where there is, they're called toxic relationships. If you have to bottle something up inside, when somebody says something to you, you have no choice. I mean, you have to either respond to it, you can react to it, you can pretend like you didn't hear it, but there's a variety of things that you can do when somebody says something to you, when they put it on your plate, and then you have to eat it. It's there for you. Once you can't unhear the things that people say to you or how they treat you, and then so you have to swallow it. You know what I mean? And when somebody treats you in a way that you don't prefer, and like you have a choice on how you're going to what you're going to do with that. Sorry, I lost my train of thought, but you have to swallow the things that people say. And I guess it's just that it's unhealthy to just allow, or to be in a toxic relationship, because you become a shadow of yourself if you're not able to be yourself around somebody else, if you have to walk on eggshells, if you have to pretend that things that other people say are okay, that they don't bother you, that things that they say aren't upsetting, that things that they say don't cause you hurt, that it doesn't feel icky around another person, then this is like I don't know, I don't have a word to put to it, like a psychological term at the moment, but I would say it is unhealthy I guess in a word. So I don't know, and I'm not telling anybody to do anything, as I never have in any of my videos, right? I'm just sharing what I go through, what my journey has been with this stuff and how I handle it, right? I tell you, it takes every ounce of who I am to to handle life in this way. I'm not saying that it's easy to deal with people, to confront certain people and situations and certain behaviors. It is not, right? I might make it out like it's easy, or it might sound easy based on my description, but like I said, the only way that I got to this point was through being very deeply disturbed and hurt by other people, to the point where I had no other option but to figure this stuff out so that I could relate to it in a healthy way, or else I would have lost my mind, or else I would have become an angry, jaded person who, walks around with a chip on his shoulder. And that's not something that is available to me. So I kind of had no choice but to handle the situation in the way that I have. But yeah, hope this helps for somebody somewhere. Something too, I'm just going to say it. Oh no, that's enough.